sound like. Okay, opponent opens up with c4, and I guess we're just gonna try to play like King's Indian slash Pirc again. Obviously against c4 it makes more sense to start knight f6, but just because I'm doing sort of the same setup against anything, I started with d6. Like, if you start with d6, the idea is to play against, let's say, d4, you have options of going e5 and harassing white with that endgame, but I'm not really intending to play that. Even though it's like a super playable line, I think Onishchuk plays like this as black. He goes g6 against anything, and he also plays with like d6 and d5. He's a pretty nice player to study. Like, I mostly studied him when I was working on my series on how to play e4, because he plays the bishop d3 French that I recommended. And he also plays other openings. Can't really recall the other thing that he played. But I remember that, yeah, I constantly followed him. So okay, opponent plays queen e2. We should avoid e5 because of the endgame. And then he like takes on d8, takes on f6, and then plays knight d5. I'll actually show you in the analysis tab after the game. I think that's a very important thing that you need to be familiar with. And yeah, like generally from a super general point of view against bishop g5 lines, c5 works best, going for some Ben on E type of positions when the bishop on g5 is like not ideally placed. But I think we're gonna try to play it more like King's Indian fashion. Gonna play like c6, knight d7, e5. Or like c6, e5. And then like after d5, this knight could also use this route to activate. And we can just go e5 because the pawn is not really like takeable there, since we'll always have this type of rook e8 ideas to win back the pawn. So you should like remember that and not be afraid of this kind of stuff. And now we can take, I believe, and yeah, I think cd is sort of the only move. Taking with a knight is not really like a thing, because you usually have ideas of playing knight c6, bishop g4, taking this, and then playing knight d4. So against this, I think we can go knight a6. It's correct that we're giving him the option to take. I'm not sure that's such a good thing to do though for my opponent. Okay, I'll try knight a6. I think that's like perfectly doable. In case he doesn't take, I still haven't decided whether we're gonna go knight c5 or knight c7, because knight c7 could also be aligned with the idea to play for bishop d7 and b5. But I don't like his h3 move, because now knight c5 is... Let's just say we go knight c5, he goes b4, I think we have ideas to take. Knight takes, bishop d8, knight d2. So in case he plays bishop d3, we just take, and I think maybe even we're slightly better. Okay, and now just h6, he wants to do with a bishop. If he goes there, I mean, we're gonna unpin and then probably just knight h5, and on bishop e3 we can start with this maneuver. But I'm not sure we achieved that much with the knight getting there, so I think it's perhaps just better to go for the typical play in the King's Indian and just go for the f5 break. And notice we have h6. Like usually before playing f5 you should be very careful and double check whether your opponent has this idea to get the knight into e6. Here it's obviously not the case because the pawn is controlling that square, but yeah, you have to keep that in mind whenever you're thinking of advancing this break. Because otherwise, if they can get this in good conditions, you're pretty much just lost. And yeah, just gonna go f4, just play in the typical fashion, just pushing pawns, trying to mate my opponent. And then a common maneuver that we do is we play rook f7, bishop f8, rook g7. But I mean, here we can also go rook f6, rook g6. Might be faster. The idea with rook f7 is like really nice in case he'll play like, let's say, rook c1, bishop f8, knight b5. The rook is gonna be really nice not only in like supporting the g push, but also keeping an eye on this square, which is like pretty important. And he's trying to run away with the king. But there's like g4 that should be working quite well. And also, among other things, there's this check and winning the pawn. I think I like b5 just to kind of lure his pieces away, because if he takes with a queen, I think then this is stronger. And if he takes with a knight, we have check and bishop a6. That seems very annoying. Or like even start with bishop a6. So yeah, after king e2, we can just play b4 and bishop a6 will become very annoying. Yeah, and notice that the rook from f7 can actually easily swing to c7 if needed. So that's another perk of having played at this fashion. So I can go rook c7 with this idea. On rook c7 though, he has like knight b6 alternative, so that's why I'll start this way. Because if I go there, he had this potentially. Plays rook c1, and yeah, I think now, well, we can take. Can also play this move. And after takes, we can actually take with a queen. He can't go knight b6 because we take with check, and then we actually collect his knight. And also, like, big threat is to just take and play bishop c4, and his queen will be actually, I mean, almost trapped, I wanted to say. Yeah, we just take, play bishop c4, he has queen c2, but then we actually take the knight. Has this, but we can just collect. Also taking on a2 with bishop b3 is winning. Maybe that's actually even better. Okay, taking, he's got queen d3. We still have bishop c4 though. I think this is even cleaner. Yeah. And funny thing is that the knight is actually trapped, and I was about to start with rook c2. So, okay, opponent resigned. I think, yeah, the game was pretty clear. I'm just curious to check whether b5 was like a good move, whether computer likes it or not, because it's not really like first thing that comes to mind, I guess. After white plays king f2. Okay, you see, like b5 is actually first line. I'm actually super happy about this find. It's just like a super nice move of, yeah, sort of making a mess in white's camp, because, okay, let me actually explain you the process of how I come up with ideas such as b5 that might seem not like super common, okay? So, first thing that I'm considering, I want to go g4, okay? He takes, okay, let's say he can even take with a knight. We have to take and then play queen h4. And the issue is that, well, let's say the king stays to like e2. I have a feeling like this queen is very annoyingly coming into the game. Like after this, he can play queen f3. So I pretty much want to get rid of that queen if possible. And that's why b5 is sort of a good move, because first of all, I have ideas to just go a5, bishop a6 and get rid of that queen. And second of all, knight b5 doesn't really work because of the check, as I was saying, and bishop a6 idea. He's just like getting crushed now. Here. So b5, it just comes as a way to like deflect his queen. And yeah, obviously then we're just crushing, because he's sort of dodging the attack on the king side. That is like usually mating, but you see that yeah, he's running onto the onto another attack on the queen side, so it doesn't mean he's actually safe. And taking on a2, I think, yeah, was cleanest. So I just resigned. Okay, I think we've got ourselves a rapid game. Opponent opens up with e4. And we're gonna be trying to play like a Pirc. Not sure how that will go, but we'll see. Gonna go knight f6. Hitting the e4 pawn, expecting him to play knight c3. There are a bunch of interesting style lines in this position, such as either bishop d3 or f3. I think I've played them myself, but obviously knight c3 is what you'll see in most of your games. So I'm gonna go g6 now, the to fianchetto and castle, and see whether my opponent's gonna be playing with like aggressive bishop e3 or more of like a positional setup. So goes for bishop c4, which is not known to be one of the most critical setups. Like, for example, I'm wondering whether I can take on e4. I think maybe that's doable. I'm just like not super familiar with this, so I'll just castle first and then, yeah, see later. So maybe knight e4 is perfectly fine. I just don't want to get into complicated lines that I'm not very well aware of, so to speak. Okay, we have bishop g5. I think we can simply, yeah, castle. And opponent plays f3. Yeah, well, he's pretty much just kind of avoiding this idea, I guess. But this bishop on c4 can actually run into either this or that. So I think c6 is perfectly fine. What you generally should not do in this position with like the bishop on g5, I think is e5, because then they can take on d8, take on f6, and then go knight d5, and you have a pretty bad issue with opponent c7. So just remember, when the bishop is on g5, be very careful when pushing e5. Could also start this way, but I think this is like more flexible. You have bishop to b3, sort of, yeah, preventing me from going d5 because he wants e5. I can still go for that, but now there's also the alternative of going e5, because there will be no longer like knight d5 ideas, because the pawn is covering that square. So I think e5 is actually a pretty good move now. Just gonna go for that. Maybe we could perhaps take on d4 in some lines. Have queen d2. So opponent plays queen d2. As I was saying, there's this idea of taking. And after queen d, I could play perhaps even knight e4 in some lines. Like bishop d8, bishop d4. Okay, I think that's actually working, funnily enough. I don't necessarily trust my calculation, but that looked to be working, and opponent instantly plays knight e2. But that actually allows me to play c5 among other things. Also things play like rook e8, and after like knight d4, maybe we do still have knight e4 kind of ideas. I mean, not really. Okay, I'll show you a trick. I'll go rook e8, knight e4, and then I'll play h6. I think that's a pretty cute trick. Because it may appear that pawn's actually just hanging there, but I'm gonna have a small trick. Okay, he doesn't even take the pawn on d4. Can't deliver the trick. Damn it. I mean, this is just like a worse move, but it doesn't allow me to get the trick in. Hey everyone, just wanted to quickly hop in and mention that in the current position, I was saying that if white took on d4, I had a pretty cute trick. So yeah, the point was to actually play h6, which doesn't really seem like the most typical move to most of you, I would guess. And yeah, I mean, first things first, the pawn is simply hanging, but the point was that we can now take on e4, and this is like a very typical tactical motive for the King's Indian defense, because after white takes back, notice that we have managed to lure white's bishop into a pretty vulnerable square, and we're actually able to win it back by playing queen h4 and then picking up the bishop. Yeah, I mean, in this position there's even like a stronger move after g3, that is queen takes on e4, but yeah, generally just taking back the bishop is simply leading to very nice positions for black, because the dot squared bishop is just a super important piece in the King's Indian. And the other thing, if for example white actually declines this pawn sacrifice by playing bishop to h4, then there will be an additional point, because we can take on e4, and like compared to the previous line, if we try taking on e4 now, they can simply recapture, because the bishop is actually quite well defended by the queen. So by going h6, we also manage to force black's bishop onto h4 if they go there, and now the bishop is actually undefended. So makes this tactic super effective. If they take, we win the bishop. If they capture the queen, we take their queen, and after king takes on d2, we have a choice between either taking the knight or the bishop with a completely winning position, because we are up a free pawn without any compensation for white. So yeah, that is pretty much what I wanted to add about this game, and I will just let you with the rest of the video. So enjoy. Which is kind of annoying. I think pushing the pawn is very doable. As I was saying, we can definitely just play c5 and hang on to that. I think, yeah, we'll just play like the obvious move. I'm not gonna try to do anything fancy. Like, I was thinking to advance the pawn, but I mean, you can just defend this guy on d4. Don't really think he's gonna play c3. Okay, he's trying to push. Well, I can just develop. I think we're just gonna play normal again. He goes h5. Maybe just go bishop e6. Maybe, yeah, play something else. Pretty much do anything at this point. That's what I always tend to say, and then resign like a few moves later. So he just goes h5. Yeah, I mean, there's obviously nothing wrong with developing. I'm just thinking maybe we can like use that bishop as a target with b5, c4. b5 though, there's this idea that's kind of annoying. So yeah, I think just playing this move is perfectly fine. Take with rook. He's gonna get knight f4. And maybe just play rook e5. Taking this way, generally not really afraid of the open file. Yeah, so he takes, and maybe we actually take this way, knight f4, king f7. That doesn't look really ideal though. So like this, knight f4, rook e5, knight e3, perhaps even like sack the exchange there. Could be an option. I don't think it's really that clean, which is kind of annoying for me. But okay, like takes, knight f4 there, knight e3, and we can like just go back, I think, and he doesn't have very obvious move. Also, like knight e4 can be a thing. Still kind of losing the exchange though. Gonna be playing rook e5, expecting knight e3, and perhaps just going back. We're okay. We're avoiding like the immediate danger, and he doesn't really have like a lot of play. Just imagine he goes there. That might look like kind of scary in that position after rook e8, but generally we can at the very least just drop the bishop to h8, and there's no like way for white to continue the attack. So yeah, I think we're pretty safe from that perspective. Okay, we have takes. He wants to get a knight to like d5. But first of all, we can like sack the exchange, and second of all, we can just try to play around that knight. I'd like to actually sack the exchange on d5 if possible, and then play like knight b4. I thought it's giving really nice compensation. He just defends though. And Yeah. I'm thinking, how can we actually make some progress here? So 95 is kind of coming. I mean, we can just try to play around the knight, obviously. I think I'll play b5. Not sure it's such a good move, but still keeping the idea to sack the exchange and then play knight b4. And maybe eventually we'll actually get some attack. I'm not sure if that's gonna be the case, but I think this is like not such a bad move. Still don't think you can ever like play with c3 because then this diagonal will open up. And I'm mostly expecting knight d5. Okay, he just doubles up, but there's no mate with the bishop on g7. So yeah, I guess we can keep on pushing. He can double, I don't mind it. Still keeping same idea, taking playing knight b4. I think I'm just looking forward to push a3 and then this whole diagonal will be weakened, and when they do this, the b4 push will be much more effective. But on b4, knight d5, I think we take pawn takes and then b8-3. Because if they take the knight, we go a2 and we promote the pawn. And after the simple recap, well, there are like d3 ideas, but also perhaps play knight b4 and then a3. It's like a fun position to play. So yeah, I was thinking to just do this and then take. And he can't really take the knight because of a2, can he? And then like ba, I can just play knight e5 for instance, but I'm wondering whether this is actually interesting. So like pawn takes a3, and this is big fat. So he plays king b1, I'm assuming, but then d3. Yeah, I think we're just gonna play this move for fun. As I was saying, like this was perfectly fine, I guess. Yeah, we just go a3. Could have also gone d3, but I think this is looking pretty. This is looking pretty nice. Just pushing the pawn. King b1 kind of the only move, but I can play a2 there, for instance, and then d3 is sort of crashing. This might actually end up being a nice attacking game, but yeah, it wasn't like like that from start to finish, in a way that it was pretty strange because I was expecting him to play knight d5 much earlier. So okay, just gonna play a2 and then d3 looks just winning. Oh, maybe I gave him king b2, but then like d3 and cb was winning. So now we just go d3. If he blocks with a knight, we just mate. And if he blocks with a queen again, we can just take twice and mate. So I think that is good enough. Game that actually ended up being a very sort of straightforward game. Let's just go back to the arena. Okay, with the gilded black pieces, just gonna go for a Pirc. Gonna go d6, knight f6, hitting the pawn. Knight c3, just gonna fianchetto. Bishop c4, yeah, we can just do this and castle. You see that it's like actually pretty common for lower rated players to develop the bishop to c4 in the Pirc, which is, I would say, not a good square, generally. Like in some lines it could work against, like, let's say the modern, but those are like different lines that are like trickier to explain. So yeah, the usual way would be to just play c5 and play back into the Sicilian, but I'll just try to do this thing or like this. Trying to keep it more of a Pirc. Yeah. I'll start it this way. Flat is b5 followed by knight c5. We need the bishop pair. Should either do this or that, I think. Don't really expect this kind of players to understand that, so yeah. Okay, actually if I go b5, bishop b3, knight c5 has e5 ideas that could be a bit messy, so I'll start with e5 myself and then do the other plan. Just e5 because it's a good move stepping into the center. I mean, it's kind of looking that it's locking the bishop, but you need to get comfortable to play with the bishop sort of locked, okay, in the Pirc. Gonna play b5, knight c5. It's like locked, but in a way it's not allowing white to step in the center because then we can take. So it's, I mean, it's not really locked. it's like a very sensible topic to explain. a5, a4, maybe h6. So he plays d4 as I was saying, and now you see that it was actually super useful. Have to take, I believe. Pawn is now hanging, so probably just defending is fine. And I think this is the plan next. Trying to force him to play like a3 and then we take. Because sure, this is also like very fine for me, but ideally I wouldn't open up his rook, you know. But yeah, I mean, taking is also just very, very decent. Just making sure you know that. Place queen f3. Keeping an eye on the knight. Just gonna ask him what do you want to do with the bishop first, and then I'll decide on the follow-up. On this, maybe just going a5. Okay, I mean, this is kind of mistake that a lot of low-rated players do. They will just go bishop g5 and takes, which is actually giving a big edge for black with a dark square bishop on the long diagonal, generally. So I'll try to prove it here. Yeah. Threatening to win the bishop, expecting either a3 or a4. And now it's thinking to take. Maybe this is also a thing with the idea to just win the pawn. Perhaps I could have done it on the previous move as well. I was just not really paying attention. Yeah, I'll go for it now. Try to repair my mistake. It wasn't really such, you know, that big of a mistake, but when you can just win 3 pawns like that, generally you should. Because his knight has to leave and then this pawn will drop. It's like more important than taking the bishop pair at this point, okay? I mean, bishop pair is very good, don't get me wrong, but it's generally better to win a free pawn than win the bishop pair. Because like you want to win the bishop pair to later win a pawn with it, okay? If that makes any sense. So why wouldn't you just win the pawn immediately if you can? I think now we can just take and take on b2 other than taking and allowing knight b6. Pretty sure we can win in many ways now, but I'll just pick this thing because I think it's simplest, just playing bishop c3, c5, and then opening up this one, hitting the pawn on e4. Expecting bishop b3, I think we can just trade, play c5. I mean, we got the bishop pair earlier, so maybe my argument doesn't really make much sense now, but I was just trying to say we went bishop for knight. It's usually just that you win bishop pair, but in this case it's just bishop for a knight, just to be more specific for those of you saying that. But we already have the two bishops. I think you get a point. Anyways. Could have taken, I mean c5 is fine as well. Not really gonna matter that much here. Place there, hitting this pawn. We'll just take and then take this one, hitting c2. Playing like b3. Oh, okay, there's no rook g6 because bishop covers that. I was about to say I blundered this because pawn is pinned, but I have the bishop. So it was all calculated. Yeah, it's a pity you guys can't really see the Lichess chat. It's like pretty funny. Someone just said, hello, Banzeur. Not really my nickname, but pretty close. Was a very decent try. Gonna play b3, b2. Just queen the pawn is gonna have to like give up a piece for that. He's trying to exploit the pin, but very well defended. Actually pre-moved that, which is pretty funny. Yeah, just bishop e5. Queen there, and win mate. Okay, that was pretty good. We will get the black pieces, and against e4 we're gonna try out a Pirc. I'm gonna be playing knight f6, and now g6, bishop g7. If he starts with bishop e3, I'm actually gonna delay fianchettoing. I'll start with c6 there, just letting you know. And yeah, now it looks like we're playing into the sort of normal lines. And yeah, normally when you see the setup against the Pirc, you need to remember that you can usually go for something like knight e4 and then d5, which is sort of why people don't play this fashion against the Pirc on a regular basis. So he takes on f7, which, yeah, it's again something pretty common. I'm thinking about bishop g4, knight g5, and then rook f8, h3. But I don't really want to give up the bishop here, so I think maybe I'll start with knight e6. Okay, we have ideas to like sack the exchange even. Probably better to just develop. Do I want to like open it up already with e5? I don't feel like we're having such nice development yet, so perhaps I'll postpone that a bit. I don't necessarily like this move because it's kind of weakening, but covering the g5 square, I guess it's important. Okay, I'll play it. Yeah, I actually have a TikTok, you should check it out. I mean, I made the TikTok command, but apparently the Nightbot is not working, so yeah, you can actually check my TikTok if you... Oh, sorry for that. If you actually search Snapchat on TikTok. Yeah, that is big. That's what she said. Gonna go bishop f5. Plays knight g3. I think we can just play queen d7 and, you know, perhaps we afford giving up the bishop pair because we bring all the pieces around. Just gonna double. I can play e5, knight f5, pawn takes. I think that's fine. Could also go take with this knight and play knight g6. Just play rook e8 in that case. Fine. Gonna go e5. But I'm like, seriously, you should check out my TikTok. I made a chess TikTok and I have a video up, okay? I'll be posting more, but already I have one, which is about the Budapest Gambit. By the way, we can actually play the Budapest Gambit against d4 if you guys remind me to. I actually have done a little bit of research around the Budapest Gambit. Okay, it's not like the biggest research ever, but I mean, I know some lines and I can go for it. Like, I even managed to win against like some IMs with it, and I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, exactly. I'm playing Rapid. I never really play Rapid, but all the like YouTube people are like, you should stop playing this Blitz nonsense and just go into some good old Rapid, you know? So here I am, I guess. Yeah, I can just go F3. Looks kind of mating now. Yeah, I'm giving him H6. To be fair, I kind of missed this, but might have like a funny mating idea with like Queen takes and then this. Like G5, Rook F4 even. It doesn't really work, but okay, just this Bishop F8 and Queen G4 works though. So yeah, but I mean the kind of good part of having lost those 5 games in a row is that I got to practice my London system course, and I've actually ran into a line that I did not study, and I had to add it in like the course files, which is actually a very interesting line, and it's like I think super useful to see what this 2800s players do against a London, because normally when I was playing into leeches I was running it like average 25 26, but if you actually like set up the formula to only against stronger players, you really start running it to those higher rated people. I also actually had this idea in mind that maybe at some point on the stream we could do a run and try to get to like top 100 blitz on leeches. I'm actually not that good at the moment. Like, I think my peak is like 2650. So you need 2800 for that, which I haven't really achieved ever. But I mean, if I actually practice more and just like play a lot of blitz, I think that's perhaps sort of doable. Like, there are also IMs, or I think even some FIDE masters who have like 28 in blitz. It's pretty funny because I ran into a 2800 guy yesterday, and on his profile he said his FIDE was 2000, but he was like 28 in blitz. He also won against me. Don't you love these players that are like 2000 in you know, normal chess, and they're like 3k playing against Hikaru in blitz. Yeah, just online chess, just how it goes. Okay, I mean, my opponent doesn't really have a way to stop mate now. This is coming, and he doesn't really have any defense. Oh, so he goes for Queen F7. I mean, if I take with the rook, then he wins, but no. That was a nice try by my opponent. So, okay.